a very competitive environment. There were lots of. I have to say, it wasn't the most collegial place because there were people who ran the show who were very good at it, but it wasn't as communal as some other places. There would sort of be a core group who, ran rewrites, and then they would sort of dole out, piecework to people. You write that scene, you do these jokes. But then they developed a system where they would have everybody working on the same things, and it got quite competitive. We want 4 different versions of the same scene, and whichever person's scene turns out the best we'll use, or the best joke for a particular place we'll use. And I guess it was, in their view, the most efficient way to produce that show. It created a great deal of stress and competitiveness amongst those of us who weren't in that inner sanctum. And I, when I reached the place where I was running shows, I made a point to not run things that way. All that said, it was a great experience because it was a hit show, and I learned a lot about writing, and I admired those people who ran the show, who were better than I was at it. Yeah, it was collaborative. I think it was expected that you would come in with story ideas, but very seldom does someone come in with a fully fleshed out idea. You might have a notion or a great opening scene or a great situation or a theme for a story, but not all the steps that it takes to create a script. So if you came in with that, then people would kind of all draw together and work out the actual steps. Again, there was a team called Spear and Grossman, husband and wife team, who were the kind of day-to-day heads. And then there was another team named Finero and Nathan who were below them, but sort of co-equal to them. So that foursome kind of ran the show, and they had the final approval. But standing above them were Whit Thomas and Harris, who didn't have too much to do with the day-to-day of the show, but because they had an empire and were running lots of different shows. But, they would sort of have story approval, and they would give notes at run-throughs and things. But the actual day-to-day, final say was that foursome. I mean, the shows tended to be in 6 scenes, 3 in Act 1, 3 in Act 2. The classic formula had, sort of a stated ambition for someone in Act 1, then a big problem that probably led to the act break. Then at some point in Act 2, the ladies would all gather in the kitchen and, cut up a cheesecake and talk a little bit about the problem, trying to help, Blanche through her problem with, the guy that she's dating. And Sophia would pull up a chair behind them, always on the same side of the table so the cameras could photograph them in a way that no one ever actually sits at a kitchen table. And Sophia would tell a story about Sicily that usually had almost nothing to do with the problem at hand. And then at some point they would, all go to bed, and then the story would resolve. The show, to me, was much more about jokes and moments than it was about actual crisp storytelling. Not to denigrate it, because I think it's a classic show and it's a very good show, but it wasn't. I don't think that there was a lot of rigorous storytelling on The Golden Girls. It was mostly about funny moments, these ladies all living together doing funny things. It was difficult, but I never felt, well, okay, everybody has grandmothers, and so we used to write, about situations that we remember seeing our moms or our grandmothers in. But also, it was a lot about the jokes. I think, Sophia certainly wasn't a real 80-year-old woman. She was a very sarcastic, funny, sort of odd creation that, could have been any age almost. So I never felt it was that difficult. I don't think any of us did.